Hilchos, Tumas, Tzaraas, Perek Shishi, the laws of impurity imparted by Tzaraas, chapter 6. Today I would classify the chapter as the topic of exceptions. Basically spots that look like Tzaraas lesions, but because of either the location where they develop or the situation of the person upon which the Tzaraas is developing, they can never become impure. At the end of the chapter we also deal with some sfekos, laws of doubtful lesions, and how we treat those spots. It says that Rambam halacha aleph elu mekaymes ba'adam. The following are the places on a person's body she'ein mistamin bebaheres, that cannot become impure. Even if what looks like a lesion develops on them, they can never turn into an impure tzaraas. Toicha ayin, the inside of the eye. The toicha oizen, the inside of the ear. The toicha choitem, the inside of the nostrils. The toicha peh, the inside of the mouth. The hakmatim shebabeten, fold over skin on the stomach. The hakmatim shebatzavar, fold over skin that develops on the neck. The tachas hadad, the area under the nipple, under the breast. Ubeis hashechi, and the armpit. The kaf haregel, the underside of the foot. The hatzipoiden, an actual nail. The hareish v'hazakon sheyesh bahen seir, head and beard area that have hairs on them. I'll talk more about that in a second. The hashchin v'hamichva hamerdin, and a burn that's either non-fire related or fire related if they are in their fresh wound stage. Kol elu hamekaymis, all of these places, ein mistamin b'negoyim, cannot become impure with any sort of nega lesion. Now, the head and the beard area, as we're going to see in chapter 8, they have a separate set of lesion that applies to them. If there's an area within the head hair or the beard hair that goes bald and other signs of impurity develop, then we have what's called a nesek. That's a special lesion for the head and the beard. But the Rambam here is talking about negoyim, regular baheres, regular white spots. They are included in this list. None of these areas on the body can become impure with a nega. Ve'ein mitztarfin b'negoyim. They can't even combine to other lesions. If you have a lesion right outside the eye and it's kind of half inside the eye, or right outside the ear and it's half in the ear, it doesn't combine. If you have a lesion right at the edge, about to enter one of those areas, if it spreads to that area, it's not called a pisyon. The ein mistamin mishum michya, they also cannot become or be counted as a healthy skin to ruin a lesion around them. In other words, you have a lesion around the eye, and you say, oh, in the eye is healthy. That should be the michya of the lesion that's around it. No, because the Torah says, michyas basar chai. It has to be an area of live, healthy skin, and these things don't count as live, healthy skin, either because they're not skin, or because they're places that are hidden, as the Rambam will soon tell us. They're also not essential to a person who has turned completely white. This is going to be tomorrow's chapter. If a person has a lesion initially, and then the lesion spreads to his entire skin, everything turns white, there's different laws that apply to the person that fully turns white. What does it mean to fully turn white? Everything besides these areas. If these areas don't turn white, let's say a person's entire skin turns white, but the fold over in his stomach didn't turn white. It doesn't matter. Shenemar, because it says, what is the reason for all of these things? When the Torah introduces Tzaraas, the wording is be'or b'sarai, that the Tzaraas appears on the skin of his flesh, actually twice in the first verse. Hashem says, Adam, a person, ki yiyev be'or b'sarai, when on the skin of his flesh there will develop one of the spots, and it will turn on the skin of his flesh into a lesion of Tzaraas. In other words, Torah makes the point that it has to be on the skin. All of these things, they don't meet the criteria of being open, revealed skin. Some of them are not even skin to begin with, like the inside of the eye, for example. While others are skin, but they're covered, and they're not revealed. Even though there are certain spots, the commentaries say that maybe could be revealed. Right? It's like the inside of the nose, that's never revealed. That's always not open. But let's say the folds in the skin, if a person unfolds, or a person becomes lean, he loses weight, now that area will technically become revealed. Nevertheless, the Torah says elsewhere, in another verse pertaining to Tzaraas, it says, L'chol mare einei hakohen, to all the sight of the eyes of the Kohen, which means from there we learn that it has to be consistently visible. If an area is visible only depending on circumstance, then it doesn't qualify. And therefore the foldovers in the skin go into the category of mechusa ve'einei gali. Additionally, says the Rambam, v'oidem hasfasayin, the redness of the lips, the actual lips themselves, nidain kebeis hastarim, is considered to be an area inside the body's cavity, the einei metame b'negoyim, and does not communicate impurity through negayim that develop on there, because a person could purse his lips and it's no longer visible. Halacha beis hareish v'hazakon shenoshar kol se'aron. The laws that we learned at the end of yesterday's chapter. When you have a person who lost all the hair in an unnatural way on the area of his head or the area of his beard, and a burn that comes from non-fire related or fire related substance. Once they begin to have a scab, they're no longer murdin, they're no longer fresh wounds. Mitamin bebaheres kamesha biyarnu. They do have the laws of baheres. If a white spot appears on these places, they're treated like regular skin, or at least they're treated in their own way, like skin that's susceptible to tzaraas. However, they don't combine one with the other. As we said yesterday, frontal baldness and back baldness do not combine. Fire-related and non-fire-related burns do not combine. If you have a lesion on the skin, it can spread into these areas and be considered to be a spreading. They also don't communicate impurity on account of having healthy skin there. But these areas do hold back somebody who's turning completely white. That means if someone turns completely white and these areas are not white, that's not considered to have turned completely white. And the reason for this difference would be because these places are eligible to have some type of tzaraas develop on them, they're eligible for a nega, they're eligible to turn white, therefore they have to turn white if a person is to be considered having turned completely white. Halacha gimel. Baheres hasmucha l'rosh. Let's say a person were to develop a spot right near the head. So this is the head, an area that with hair, as we saw in Halacha Aleph, is not even fit to have tzaraas. The lesion develops right next to it. Oyla ayin, or right next to the eye. Oyla oizen, or right next to the ear. V'chayetze, and anything like that, anything on the list in Halacha Aleph that cannot be susceptible to negoyim. Oyla shchine la michva, or it develops right near a burn. That's either from a fire or non-fire related substance. Tohira, says the Rambam. The whole lesion is pure. Shenemar, because the verse says, V'ro hakayin esanega b'oir habasar. The Kohen, when he inspects the lesion, he needs to see it on the skin of the flesh, which means that the skin of the flesh has to be the backdrop. Everything that's around the immediate surrounding of the lesion needs to be skin of the flesh, and fitting for the nega to spread to it. Over here, as the Ravid points out, even though on the other sides it may very well be eligible to spread, over here is total regular skin. Here's total regular skin. It doesn't make a difference. If, like the Rambam says, if not everything is fitting to be a host to a spread of the lesion, the whole lesion is considered to be pure. Halacha dalid elu behares tahiris. The following is an additional list of white spots, white lesions that are completely pure. And the reasoning for all these things is going to be because there was a time when this lesion existed that it could not have become impure, as you'll see in a second. The first thing is, you have an idol-worshipping Gentile who has a lesion already while he's Gentile, and then he converts. While he was Gentile, it could not have become impure. He's a Goy. A Goy is not subject to the laws of Tzaraas. So even when he becomes Jewish, the spot remains pure. If the spot was on a fetus, and the fetus was born. Bakemet v'nigla, if it was in a fold of a skin, and then it became revealed. Maybe the spot developed on the head and the beard when there was hair growing on them. V'nikrechu, and then they became unnaturally bald. V'nashar kol haseir, all the hair fell off. V'nisgalsa habaheres, and this spot now came out to the open. Also pure. Let's say they developed on the burn while they were still a fresh wound. Then they began to scab. At this point, they technically would become fit to have a baheres, but the baheres was there before when it wasn't fit. All of these things are pure. Also, let's say the spot was there on a baby. Baby was totally bald. The hair hadn't even grown hair yet. The head hadn't even grown hair yet. And the spot developed. And then they grew hair, at which point the spot becomes no longer fit. And then the hair went away. So here, a little different than the first cases. The first cases all began in a non-fit way. Here they began in a fit way, then they became unfit, now they're fit again, technically. Still pure. Or the baheres initially developed on regular skin, healthy skin. So the baheres it's fitting to become impure technically. But then the same place got a burn. Then they became healed. Which means they became all the way back to being like regular flesh. Since even though in the beginning and the end they could have become impure had a sign of impurity developed. Since it was pure, totally pure, essentially pure, in the middle, they become pure forever. If the shade of this baheres changed after having gone through this period of purity, whether they became deeper or darker, or batchila, they have to be examined from new. Now it's a new lesion. Changing shade makes it a new lesion, and we don't care about the status of the very same spot, what was there a couple of days before. Ketzad, what does that mean? Using the same examples. An idol-worshipping Gentile had a white spot that was the shade of egg membrane, which is a qualifying shade. Then he goes to the mikveh, converts, and the same spot turns into a deeper white, a snow white. Or while Gentile it was a snow white, then he converts, and it becomes the shade of an egg membrane white. Needs to be examined from new. The child that was born with a spot, if a spot changed shades, if a fold of skin became revealed, if a head or a beard became bald, or a burn that became healed, if those spots changed their shade, they must be examined from new. If not, they remain pure, because the fact that they went through a period in which they were pure makes them pure forever. Halacha hey, moving now to the doubtful negoyim. Kol sfeik negoyim. Whenever you're in doubt about a lesion, chutz mishnei sfeikos shemaninu kvar. Besides for the two types of doubt which we've already enumerated. We enumerated a doubt in chapter 2 when we were learning about the white hairs. That Rambam said that the lesion needs to come first and then the white hairs. What if you're in doubt? Safek seir lavan kadam, safek baheres kadma. You don't know which one came first, the spot or the white hairs. Over there, the Rambam ruled that it's tameh always, even though tum asay besafek, the tumah is in doubt. The second one we saw in chapter 4 is when we're talking about spreading, that if a person goes into quarantine with a baheres the size of a gris, and then by the end of the week he comes out with a baheres larger, the size of a sela, but he doesn't know if it's the same thing or it disappeared and reappeared at this size. So we don't know if we should consider it to be a spreading. The Rambam ruled that it's impure because we have the chazakah, the last known presumption is that he's impure, so we assume him to be impure. So those two sfeikas are exceptions. Those two doubts are not the rule that we're about to say now. Any other doubt that arises in negoyim, toher ad shaloi nizkak l'tuma, before he has been deemed impure at any level, these doubts will be considered pure. But once he's been deemed impure, he's already in the impure side of the field, so then any doubts that arise will be considered to be impure. In other words, we're going to go with the last known situation of you, have you been pure or impure, as the Rambam immediately delineates. Ketzad, what does this mean? Shnayim shabo eitzel kohen. You have two people come to a kohen to get inspected. Bazeh baheres kigris or bazeh kesela. One has a baheres the size of a gris, which is the minimum size, 6 by 6 hairs. Another one has a bigger one. It's a larger baheres, size of a coin. The hisgira, and the kohen puts them both in quarantine because none of them have signs of impurity. U'b'seif hashavua, comes the end of the week, bazeh kesela or bazeh kesela. Both of them now have the larger size. Now the problem is, ve'en yodua be'ezeh mehen pasasa. They forgot who came with the smaller one originally. So certainly, the one who, if we would know, so what would be the law? The person who came with the smaller one now has the bigger one. He's completely tameh. The other one is totally fine because, or goes to another week of quarantine because he has no developments on his tzaraas. But now maybe, we don't know, each one might have had the one that spread. Bein b'shnei anashim, bein b'ishecha. The truth is, even if it wasn't two people, let's say it was one person. One person comes with two lesions, one the size of a gris, one the size of a sela. Comes back into the week, they're both a sela, but you don't know which one was which. Harezet tahar, the person is totally pure. Because at this point, he has never been deemed impure. He never entered the impure side. He was just in quarantine. And the Rambam clarifies for the single individual. Even in the single individual, if he has two negas, but the person had a pisyon, the person had a spreading, since you don't know which spot it was that spread, we can't hold you impure. You're pure. Until you know which one was the one that became impure. That's an example of a person who didn't enter the stage of Tumah yet. Therefore, when in doubt, you go leniently. But once you've entered the realm of impurity, now if you have a doubt, you have to go strictly and assume that you're impure. Ketal, what does that look like? Same case. Shnayim shabo eitzel koyin. Two people come to the koyin. Bazeh baheres kigris or bazeh kesela. One a smaller lesion, one a bigger lesion. V'his giram puts them in quarantine. B'soif hashavua, they come back after 1 week. V'harei bazeh kesela v'oid u bazeh kesela v'oid. Now both lesions are larger than a sela, a bit larger than a sela. So now that means that for sure both of them have spread. The one that had a smaller one for sure spread. The one that had a selah side also spread. Selah v'oit. Shnei and Tmein. So of course they're both impure. They have a sign of impurity, pisyon. Chazru Shnei and Liyas Kesela. Now they both go back to being the regular coin size, which means Shahare Holach HaPisyon Me'echad Mehem. One of them lost the signs of impurity. As we saw yesterday and the day before, once you lose a sign of impurity, you become pure. But we don't know which one is. The guy who had the smaller lesion, while it spread to a larger than a selah, but it came down, but it's still spreading. It's still bigger than it originally was. Second guy, it's no longer bigger. Since we don't know which one he is, Shnei and Tmeim, they're both going to be considered impure out of doubt, until both of them come back to being reduced to the original minimum size. Because then, for sure, they both went back to the original size, assuming that either one was the one that had the grease size. This is the meaning of the sage's statement. Once you're in the realm of impurity, you're considered impure out of doubt. So too, let's say somebody had a lesion, and he had two sets of white hairs in this spot. One set came before the lesion, another set was turned white by the lesion. And you don't know which one came first and which one came later. That's the real one you have to know about. That's one that's a sign of impurity. So, if this doubt arose while you were in quarantine, you're pure. But if it's after having already been decided and now you don't know, you're going to be remaining impure. And even if one of the sets of white hairs disappeared, but you don't know which one disappeared. Was it the impure one or not the impurity one? If it was the impure sign or the other hair, doesn't matter. Once you've entered the realm of impurity, we have to hold you impure till definitely you're known to be pure. Let's say somebody comes to a Kohen. And the Kohen sees either that he needs quarantine or it's a non-lesion, he can go home. And before he has a chance to declare quarantine or exemption, no delay simone tuma, the person now has signs of impurity appear. That's too bad. He didn't have a chance to say quarantine, so right now you got to put him totally into impurity. By the way, the commentaries point out, even when it comes to the exemption case, even if he did have a chance, even if he did exempt him, and the simone tuma came, anytime you have simone tuma after exemption, you're still impure. Let's say the opposite. He came to the Kohen and there was definite signs of impurity. And before the Kohen has a chance to decide him impure and to actually enunciate the words, you are impure. The signs of impurity left and they went away. If it's in the initial inspection after 1 week, put him back into quarantine because you have a lesion with no signs of impurity. Or if it's after 2 weeks or after having been exempted, so you simply exempt him because right now there's no signs of impurity. So you can't declare him impure, he remains pure.